Welcome back to High Tales with the Lit Sisters. I'm Nicole.
And I'm her much younger sister, Marissa.
By much, she means like 3 years. But that's
fine.
It
looks like 30.
Oh, low blows right at the beginning. Damn.
Gotcha, punk. I've had a rough work week.
You can take it out on me. That's fine. That's what sisters are for. All right. So where we left off was our first 1, maybe 2 episodes. We don't know because we recorded for 4 hours. So it might end up being 2 episodes.
It might be 3. We were down here for so long.
We did. We got real into the weeds. But either way, before you get here, we went through Nesta's intervention with the fam, saying, we're not letting you destroy yourself anymore.
A lot of Nesta whining.
A lot of whining. I feel bad. I'll be honest. I'll feel bad the second time around saying it's whining, even though that's very much how I felt the first time around reading it. But she basically was put on a path to rehabilitation.
Yes.
She, as in varying levels of accepting that path.
They had an intervention.
Yeah, she accepts it more at this point in the novel than she has before. She's kind of diving in and wanted to extend invitations to the priestesses as well to do the training because she's seeing how it is helping her. She's starting to see how it's helping her.
And she did it in like the most manipulative way, which just proves how good of like a strategist she is.
To even like get them to care about, yeah, because she had the sign-up sheet, which was passive. No one signed up. And then she started breaking the rules so that Clotha would make Cassian come and like yell at her. But she knew all the priestesses would see how great Cassian is.
And how he's not a scary man that hurt you.
Right.
He's a good dude.
And see how she actually is better and how she's strong and powerful. And they would sign up. And we ended with Gwen signed up for training.
Yay!
I know. That was a big like, yay moment.
Yes.
And that's where we're starting this episode.
Yes. And sorry, we took that recap as an opportunity to start ourselves and get us in the mood.
Yeah, we figured since we recorded for 4 hours, we probably don't need to recap more than a couple of sentences because this is a detailed book.
And I also think this strategy means we just smoke more consistently throughout, not just at the very beginning. Or that's my strategy.
I did have someone tell me that they giggle every time they hear the lighter in the background. So you'll just get more giggle moments.
The funny thing is, I wonder if they notice in some tense moments where we have a little tiff that the lighter starts going more often.
You cut out the tiffs.
I know, but not the lighter.
You can catch those on Paramount after. I'm just kidding.
Okay, so Gwen is coming. Very anxiously, Nesta and Cassian are waiting. And like Nesta is like bouncing from foot to foot. And there comes Gwen. And she is still in her robes. And she is very tentatively walking towards them.
Well, and let's keep it real. This is not just her first time out of the library. It's her first time outside.
With people.
Since she came there initially.
Yes.
Which was, I think, has been about 2 years at this point.
And one thing that I absolutely love is Nesta immediately is like, wow, she is much more graceful than me.
Right. As soon as she starts training, she's like, she was able to pick it up with something in an hour that took me 3 weeks.
She's already equivalent to my strength, and I've been doing this for like 3 weeks, man. Right.
And I will say, Gwen was like, yoga. It's yoga, Nesta. We used to do yoga at the... How do you say where she was?
You say temple.
Temple. That's right. I forgot. We're not even attempting anymore.
I mean, that's what I started saying in my head. Every time I said it, I would go, Saga Temple.
Yeah. But I love how we learn more about who Gwen is.
Yes. So her grandma was a water wrath that seduced a high fae. And so her mom was half fae, half water wrath. And
I think it's river nymph.
Oh, river nymph.
But okay. I don't know if they're in the same family as the water wraths or not.
It sounded by the description that they are close cousins then.
Yes.
So this river nymph, she was just kind of not allowed to go anywhere. Neither side of the house wanted to claim her.
Right.
And so she actually found solace with the priestesses and actually raised her kids with the priestesses. And that's how Gwen was like brought up, But it also explains like why her eyes are so bright blue and wide.
Right.
And she actually also references like she had a twin sister, and Nesta does notice she uses the had, right?
Yeah.
And that her twin sister actually had webbed hands.
Right.
She just doesn't look as river nymph as she could have been.
Right. It's kind of like how you're actually like 29% Japanese and I'm 24%.
That extra couple percentages really did me well.
Still more Asian in the battle of the war there. No, that and we find out that Gwen's mother took part in the Great Rite, which we know about that from the Spring Court. Yeah. Right? Now, other places also do it, but she took part in the Great Rite with somebody from the Autumn Court. But they don't know who.
How do they know it's from the Autumn Court?
She says it. Oh. She says it there that who...
I guess I just assumed it was the Spring Court.
Oh, no, I'm pretty sure she said the Autumn Court.
Oh. All I remember is, okay, she went to that orgy.
she was chosen. So we don't...
Well, what because I remember, it's not that they're chosen, because after the one person chooses... Everybody...
Oh, she's a part of the everybody orgy.
Yeah, I think she's part of the everybody.
Oh, no, I think so too. But it's like, so who is her dad? We don't really, we don't know at this point. Yeah. Yeah, so they're a fourth river nymph at this point.
Yes.
And they're about half high fae. Okay, so then Cassian has to go to the Illyrian Mountains for some business. And Nesta's like, hey, drop me off in Windhaven. I want to do some shopping. She wants to go see Emery. When she walks into Emery's shop, though, Bellis, Emery's cousin, is there.
And he is drunk AF.
In the middle of the day.
Yes.
In the middle of the day, mind you. And he's given her shit.
Which we shouldn't judge that for people that do that in the middle of the day. Like, no judgment.
But if you're going to go cause shit in a store...
Yeah, might as well be drunk.
Might as well be drunk. Might as well make it easier. Might as well give my cousin crap. But right away, Nesta doesn't know the backstory. Comes in and is like, I think it's time for you to leave. Get the fuck out. Right away.
Doesn't care.
Does not care. Loved it. Was not afraid of him in the slightest. Was dishing it out, and Cassian has told her before, you probably should make sure you're better at training so you can back it up. She doesn't even care if she can or can't.
Okay, well, let's be honest. She can back it up with her mind and eyeballs. So she's not really... She can beat everybody in magic. She just doesn't know how to use it, so she might kill more people than she means.
She might obliterate the whole town.
But she can back it up.
She can back it up, all right? There might be unforeseen consequences, but it's okay. So then Emery did try and make a couple excuses for her cousin.
Yes.
She's like, he's, going to participate in the blood rite. He qualified to participate in the blood rite, so he's just being all cocky.
The what?
The what?
We'll find out later.
Yes.
Don't worry.
Yes, spoiler. Asterisk in future part of this episode.
No, but that's not a spoiler.
No, it's not. So then Emery invites Nesta to stay and eat with her, and I thought it was so endearing that Nesta's first thought was, I don't think anybody's ever invited me to do anything before.
So let's just say her first friend ever was a house.
Yes.
And then her second friend ever was somebody who hadn't left a basement for how many years? Decades? Centuries?
No. Well, she was only been there since 2 years ago. Maybe 2 years.
Oh, okay.
But all of her homies haven't left in decades. Yeah.
She hasn't been outside.
No, has not been outside.
Yes. No. And now she has a third friend, maybe.
A third friend, maybe, kind of, sort of.
Nesta, you're doing so good.
We're playing it cool, Marissa. Okay. We're playing it cool. She just invited us for dinner, okay?
Okay.
We're playing it cool. Her first thought was Emery only did it because she doesn't know how awful she is. The self-deprecating thoughts that she has going on in her head constantly. That's why I said at the beginning, I feel kind of bad saying she was whining.
Yeah,
because she
wasn't outwardly whining, but it's just because we were in her head that it felt like...
We heard the nasty things she says to herself, which makes me go, oh, you're so mean to yourself. Stop
okay, now I'm feeling bad saying that.
You should. Okay, think about it. No. But they had just a very girlfriendy kind of talk, in all honesty. They talked about how it's actually pretty comparable about how women are treated in Ilaria versus in the human lands, right? Emery about how her wings were clipped and they don't think she can run. They were
forcefully clipped.
They were forcefully clipped. She can't run a business. Nesta talks, and they don't think she can or should run her dad's business. Nesta talks about how as soon as her dad lost all the money, everyone just like dropped them. And she tried to reach out to her cousin and there was no response whatsoever. And then Emery told Nesta how Rhys actually changed those inheritance laws years ago so that women could be included and her uncles don't seem to care. I thought that was good because we get to see Rhys in this book through Nesta's eyes and they don't really like each other. So it's not super surprising that we don't really like Rhys as much in this book as we have in the 3 books before, right? Because it's through Nesta's eyes. But you start to get the indications where Nesta's finding out more about him to understand him as well. And hopefully he can understand her. And then Nesta concludes that with inviting Emery to training with Cassian. And she's like, yeah, no, I don't think so. Someone's got to run the shop. And Nesta's very non-committal. She just says, send word if you want to come. Almost friend.
Which
very nice.
Also, I think it's very interesting that the first time she met Emery was because she was aggressively sitting instead of training.
Right.
And then the second time she sees her, it is, hey, you want to start training with me?
Remember when I needed fleece because I'm too cold to sit on that rock? It's actually helping, like they said it would, and I think it could help you too.
But instead of doing it where I was originally supposed to, you have to commute to me now.
I'll send a car.
I'll send a Rhys. I'll send a High Lord.
All right, so possibly friend number 3 here.
Where's Cassian during all of this?
Well, so he's meeting with Eris, and he doesn't feel too great about his performance. He's not a natural when it comes to the scheming part of war.
No, but he tells Eris about the dread trove.
He does.
Which I keep trying to call death trove, so please correct me.
It kind of is, though.
It's both.
It's kind of both. It's kind of both.
But also we know that Baron doesn't know.
He does confirm that Baron doesn't know, which means Braylon might not trust Baron as much as we...
So, Cassian's brooding.
He is. I just picture him like, you're so stupid. Why did you say that?
Stupid.
Why did you say it like that? And in front of Eris of all people.
It's not natural for him to do it. It would be like if I was trying to do it, to be honest.
It's taken him out of his comfort zone and then with the person who loves to point out these types of things about him. Yeah. Like Eris likes that he makes Cassian uncomfortable and that he can very easily flaunt being smarter than him.
Yes.
In a way, and it's going to ping right on Cassian's confidence.
And it shows on his face. Yes. He can't hide it.
He can't. So he's beating himself up.
Nesta hates how self-loathing he looks.
Nesta tells Cassian that Rhys should just kill Ares. And Cassian's like, when it comes down to it, he's a better High Lord than Baron. And it's what needs to happen. I need to just get over it. And she's just kind of like, you're such a good person. You probably should get a blowjob.
Yes. And after that part, they're like, okay, now bend me over the table. And Az comes walking in.
Well, Az didn't even walk in. He does like a... he makes noises so you know I'm coming when he's a shadow singer. Like he's silent all the time. So he very purposely is like, oops.
Because I don't want to get in before you fix yourselves, but I want you to know I'm here.
But
and I let you finish the BJ.
Exactly. He basically makes them know that I knew that was going on, and when you were about to turn around, I'm going to be like, wait. I'm trying to eat dinner there.
And Cassian was just like, thanks, bro.
Yeah. Way to have my back. Way to be a wingman. A bat wingman.
Oh. Which is actually kind of rude because Nesta didn't get hers. Az came in before she couldn't get hers.
She did. I don't think she cared, though. She was a giver in this situation.
That was a pity BJ. Have you ever given a pity BJ?
Yes. You haven't? I feel like every woman has given a pity BJ before. Sorry, Mom and Dad, if you're listening.
Oh, we might just cut that.
Or just cut it at... Yes, I think everybody has. They don't need to know the details.
They don't need to know who. By the way, who was it?
So after this pity BJ night, Nesta sends Cassian back up to Emery with some spices. genius. Nesta is a genius. We're starting to get these little indications of she just knows how to play these games.
Like her mom, remember we found out her mom like trained her to marry a prince.
Yeah.
And so, like, the court politics...
She gets all this.
She knows what motivates people. And sometimes she uses that power for good, which is this case.
Which makes sense, because with Feyre, we were pretty amazed at how quickly she was able to just survive. Yeah. Right? In the game, with the worm, how she just picked up on the worm's over there because the crowd's cheering there. Yeah. She just naturally is good at survival skills. Yeah. So she picked those up. Nesta is naturally good at the politics of things and the scheming side of things because of her mom. Which is
how her mom trained her.
Yeah, crazy. So she sends spices because they had that conversation when she sat for dinner that they don't get a lot of spices. And when Emery tells Cassian, like, oh, what can I do to thank her? He's like, she said you can come to training tomorrow. Boom.
Got her.
Smart.
Got her.
Smart. So it works. Nesta's versions of how Gwen and Emery took to training are completely different.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Gwen was graceful, picked up on things very fast. Emery, not so much.
She struggled.
She struggled, but the reason she struggled and how cognizant of it and gentle Cassian was, it was because of her wings. Mm-hmm. And when you can't use your wings fully, like she can't.
Yeah, for balance.
It throws her off balance. So it's a completely different way. She's got to like learn a different balance with having wings but not being able to use them. And you see Cassian getting more and more pissed about, I mean, his, Mount Everest, I think, is the way women are treated amongst the Illyrians, right? And this is just more evidence of that. Yeah. That she can't even defend herself. The girls really all start getting along, right? This is the first time Gwen and Emery have met. And they start talking about how they're all into reading and how Emery and Nesta both read smut.
Yes.
And then Gwen is kind of like the you.
Smut?
I felt very much like it was me and our sister and you all talking about books. And you're like...
on the scale, I'm Gwen.
Oh, for sure.
You're Nesta.
And our sister Emery. Yeah. Because Emery, I felt like
had some grit to her
some stuff
romance.
Nesta hadn't read yet. And they were like, ooh, and talking back and forth. And then Gwen's like, I want to too. And they both kind of look at each other like, let's start you here. And if you are okay with this, then we'll kind of go. We'll go to this level.
We'll give you a really tame one.
You need entry level.
And even that tame one, she was like very uncomfortable with.
She was. So they're really getting along well. It's looking really cool. I think it's really great for all of them. Mm-hmm. And you see this relationship forming and all of that. Then Rhys comes to take Emery back to Windhaven and mentally tells Nesta to make sure she treats Gwen with respect.
Which makes me mad. Of course she is.
It made me really mad. Well, first of all, as a man, okay, as a male, you're going to tell me to respect another woman who was violated. Like, you don't even, at this point, Rhys doesn't even know that Nesta, it was in a violation situation as well that she got out of, right?
And Rhys knows that she's there because Nesta put up a sign-up sheet. He's getting regular updates.
It's just sticking his nose where it doesn't belong and exuding authority where it also doesn't belong.
Well, he is High Lord of the Night Court.
But
and they are in the Night Court.
They
live in the Night Court's castle.
They are, but it's insulting at a different level. I agree. And I love how Cassian right away was like, and I don't need you getting in her mind and always believing the worst in her and talking shit. Yeah.
I'm trying to fix that, dude.
Right away.
Not fix it. I'm trying to support her out of this.
Yeah, he's like, don't think the worst of her. Yeah. Knock it off. And Rhys actually apologizes.
Yeah.
Right? So you do see that they are family. Yeah. Cassian is able to call him out, and he does succumb to it and say, oh, you know what? You're right. I promise to back off. And Cassian even throws in there, and you got the baby. Like, anybody kind of sort of threatens you, you're going to freaking flip out. So just, know your role. And chill, dude.
This.
Chill.
I got this. Give me space.
Leave it alone. Yeah. I liked that.
Yeah, I like that, too. Okay, so later that day, she is at her afternoon job, and they are in the library. Meryl comes up and she starts talking about, oh, I know you switched the books. You're a thief, blah, blah, blah. And Nesta, again, does not care.
She's actually plays a little aloof, doesn't really play the bitch card right away. She's kind of like, I don't even know what you're talking about.
Meryl doesn't scare her in the least. And Gwen even is right next to her like, oh, shit. Oh, I wouldn't say that. Oh, and Meryl's also being really rude, like third person talking about how Gwen, my assistant, is so stupid and makes mistakes. And Gwen is just like sitting there just taking it. It's like a burn.
Yeah. Yeah, but Nesta's not.
Nesta doesn't care.
Yeah.
And so she stands up to Meryl. I don't care. Go away. Like, exerts her alpha dog silver eyes, basically. And Meryl, like, she doesn't, like, concede or stammer or get scared. But she definitely, like, walks away.
Yeah. Yeah.
The next day, 3 new people come.
Yeah, they're like, oh, if that's what you get out of training.
Yes.
If you can stand up to Meryl and not be afraid.
Scared. Yes. Again, they're not realizing that it's not just the training that's making her scary. It's also the fact that she's a maid woman. Wink, wink.
Mean, yeah, a maid woman. They're seeing more and more, right?
Yes.
They're trusting more and more as they see more of Nesta and Gwen, essentially. Yeah.
So Deidre is the first. Mm-hmm. She's the only one that removes her hood. Everybody else stays pretty, tight. She has a large scar on her face, but other than that, she's beautiful. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think all the priestesses, all high fae are beautiful.
Yeah.
Rosin hasn't gone out of the library in over 60 years.
Yeah. Well, remember, Rosalind was the one that Meryl's like, Rosalind? You think I'm Rosalind? So as soon as I read Rosalind, I'm like, oh, there's Rosalind.
Oh, yikes. And Annika?
Yeah.
I don't know. She was a third. And basically it just made Nesta feel like, okay, I'm giving them courage.
Yeah.
I got courage and now they're going to get courage.
Well, a big part of healing, I think, is being able to help heal other people. See other people on the path because it means your path has hope.
Yeah.
So it's good for Nesta.
So this gave Nesta some confidence and she said, okay, you're right. The only way I'm going to find this is scrying.
Yeah.
And so she says, Cassian, let's do this.
Yeah. If the priestesses can do it, if they can step outside after 60 some years.
Yeah.
I can scry. I can do this. Yeah.
I can do it. And so her and Cassian come into a room and she just kind of like feels him behind and she just starts trying. And there's just so much fear and she just can't, she has to stop. But that night, she has this nightmare.
Yeah.
And we find out from Cassian's perspective, which was such a cool way to hear how it happened. Mm-hmm. But basically, like, Cassian jumps out of bed because he just feels and, like, hears, like,
the urgency
darkness.
To run.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a feeling, not a sound or
anything.
anything.
And so he's just, like, in his boxer shorts or whatever Illyrians wear to bed.
Oh, are you picturing it? I'm like, you're trying to paint the full picture.
I'm trying.
Is it boxer briefs or boxers?
No, I feel like Cassian's a boxers guy.
Oh, I pictured boxer briefs for sure.
I feel like Az is boxer briefs.
Definitely. Yeah. Cassian's like the longer boxer briefs. Az is like the shorter ones.
No, I think they're both normal. Okay. Anyway, he runs out. Az is right behind him because it woke up Az too. And so they're going and Nesta is just like pushing out like this darkness and they see her and she's like elevated out of bed.
And it's silver flames.
Silver everywhere. Yeah. But it's not hot. It is frozen.
Right.
It is frozen.
Yeah. The exact opposite.
Yeah. So, like, they're trying to pull her out of it. Like, they both, like, have their sword ready. Mm-hmm. But it's literally just Nesta in anguishing pain, lit up by silver flames.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, the whole window breaks. Mm-hmm. Reese comes in. And Reese is also, like, trying to contain. Like, you just see silver flames meshed with, like, complete darkness, which is Reese's power.
Right.
And just pressing down. And Cassian's just yelling, Nesta, wake up, Nesta, and like trying to get closer to her.
Yeah.
Reese has to go in her brain to then get her to calm down and stop.
Right.
And it finally goes down and Nesta is still like anguish pain on her face, but she's like settled asleep.
Right.
And the house is slowly putting back the window that had been shattered. And Reese is just like...
He said it like, well, I think his reaction to what it was, because Cassian and Az are like, what was that? Yeah. And he's like, the silver flames were only the surface of her power. I remember him saying, like, that is the surface of what is actually in there. Like, he was scared, like
shocked.
Shocked is a better word, yeah.
Well, and I think he also said something, and I don't know exactly what it was, but he said something that made me think he now empathize. He's like, I didn't realize the trauma of going into the cauldron.
He said he saw what she took from the cauldron, but also what the cauldron took from her.
Yes.
And the way he said it was, you're right. Like, I heard empathy.
Yes.
That it wasn't just Nesta taking.
Yeah.
It stripped part of her.
Well, and it almost explained to him why scrying was so, like, why she was so scared of it. Because it was, like, the cauldron, like, grabbed her.
Right.
Yeah.
And then they're like, so what's her power? And he's like, death.
Pure death.
Pure death. Which is like the second person who has a power that I don't quite understand. Right? Morgan's power is truth. Does that mean you have to tell the truth? Does that mean you know truth? Does that mean you can prevent people from saying the truth? What is that? I feel like it's from Schitt's Creek, where it's like you fold the cheese in, and it's like, how do you do that? And it's like, I don't know how else to tell you. You fold the cheese. Her power's death. What does that mean? Because she killed people? We don't know. It's just death.
I actually kind of felt a little bit bad too in the Reese perspective, because I was like, okay, well, if it was enough to scare Reese, then I guess her trauma, and I think we actually debated whose trauma was worse, Nesta's or Feyre's. And now I kind of feel bad for poo-pooing on Nesta's. Boy, did karma hit me back.
I mean, it's not Trauma Olympics. It's okay.
Everybody can have varying forms of trauma. And
that's the point, right? We're getting farther into Nesta's shell. Very hard shell that she has around her to kind of understand the why behind it, everything. So they're talking the next day about all of this and like damage control, what they need to do. Reese finally tells Cassian the baby has wings, which Cassian at first was like, yeah, bro. And it's obviously not a happy thing.
Yeah.
Right? Because Feyre is not built like an Illyrian, right? Illyrians have, their hips are different so that they can pass the wings. Feyre's are not. There's not a good way to change it so that she can be okay with it.
Maja, the like healer that they fixed Cassian's wings and everything, said she can't shapeshift anymore. It's dangerous for the baby.
Right.
And like minimal magic use because of how dangerous this is.
We also find out that Feyre only knows that there's an elevated risk. They're not talking to her about the almost certainty of death, not even likelihood, like a pretty much certainty of death.
Yeah.
Pretty heavy.
Yeah. Really heavy.
I am a little annoyed Feyre doesn't know about that.
I'm very annoyed.
At this point.
Yes.
I think we can talk more about it as this all unfolds. But right now, my first response was, how does Feyre not know?
Well, okay, between this and the shield, I'm feeling like Reese, as a mate with a pregnant mate, is very Tamlin.
Yeah.
Like, making decisions without her knowledge about her
body and well-being.
But who does that?
Right.
Wink, wink. We can do that.
Again, a man shouldn't make those kinds of fucking decisions. No.
Wink, wink.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they decide that essentially also there is a risk with Tamlin finding out about the pregnancy and all of that. So they decide they need to summon Lucian, tell him the news, and like put him in the spring court for damage control.
Yeah.
Because if the spring court really goes, that's the connection to the human lands. There's a lot more things that could go.
Yeah.
And then Cassian and Reese have to fight it out because boys are fucking weird.
Yeah, Fight Club.
When you're stressed, let's go beat the shit out of each other in the backyard.
The first rule of Fight Club is don't talk about Fight Club.
Well, we're in a podcast, Reese and Cassian, so we're going to talk about Fight Club.
And now you're going to get beat up again for talking about Fight Club.
All right, so later at dinner, Cassian's back. He's all black and blue. Tells Nesta about the baby and the concern with the wings and all of that. Mm-hmm. Tells her that Reese is also going to go to Miriam and see if there's anything with the Seraphim. The wings are different, but maybe they have some
Seraphim is Dracon's.
Dracon's, right. And they have the feathered wings. So, and she's human. So maybe they encounter this and see if he can find anything out. But their wings are different. So it might not lead to anything. And Moore also knows and is researching on the continent in Valhalla.
So everyone, including her sister, knows.
True. Yeah. Everyone knows right now. Except for her. Now I'm a little more annoyed. Okay. Nesta tells Cassian that she wants to scry again. She wants to try again. And Cassian says that, fine, but Rhys, Amren, and Az all need to be there for various reasons. Nesta agrees. She doesn't put up a big fight about that.
But she does note it's going to be awkward. Every time Amren comes around, she gets super awkward.
Yeah, there's more to what happened with their falling out emotionally.
Yes.
I think we know the story, but I think the effects.
Well, and Amren was the only one that ever defended her.
Agreed.
So it's like kind of like her last hope is the most mad at her.
Right. Nesta then also asks him, by the way, how come you haven't sought me out? Like last time we were together, I rocked your world, and
or so I thought.
You haven't come to seek me out at all.
She said, I'm sorry. She said, why are you looking at me like that?
Because your face is so red. Just prepping to say it.
She said, I liked when you effed my mouth.
Oh, we're saying effed now.
I said fucked earlier.
I like how you tell the microphone. Like you're trying to be all quiet about it. She's like, she did say, I like when you fucked my mouth.
Yes.
It just sounds better coming from me. From you, it's like, I said fucked earlier.
I didn't he afterwards.
All right, she did say that, and then she told him maybe when he's healed and pretty, she can take him anywhere. And he said, deal. Very quickly. Deal.
Deal, Shaquille.
Deal, Shaquille. So the next day, they go to the river house to try again. When Nesta sees Amren, all she can think about is their fight. And how Amren told her in the fight, you have become a pathetic waste of life.
Yes.
Which I was like, damn, that's harsh.
Yeah.
I didn't know that's what was said on the boat, but it sounds like something Amren would say.
Yeah.
And I don't think she understands how much that impacted Nesta.
Can I set the stage for how this room is set up real quick?
Yes.
So she's standing ready to scry, thinking about their fight. Az is actually like shielded Elaine so she wouldn't get hurt. Feyre and Rhys like thanked her in her brain for not saying anything about the wings to Feyre.
Right.
Which, again...
Annoying.
Mm-hmm. And the whole room like turns ice cold.
Yes.
And Nesta's eyes start to become on fire.
Yeah. Also, Cassian is where?
Cassian is right next to her, right?
Right. And she was using his warmth to ground her. So the fact that everything is so cold as she's trying to scry, Cassian is that warmth that grounded her, and she knew he would never allow harm to her.
Yeah.
That thought calmed her, right?
Yes.
So he's the one who's grounding her.
Mm-hmm.
Nesta went cold. She's being pulled somewhere. Feyre and Rhys can't go into her mind. So last time they were able to break it by Rhys going into her mind. When she did it with the cauldron, Feyre was able to go into her mind. She has her mind locked down pat. Shields are up. They have no way to get in. So she's kind of lost in it, and they can't go in and help her. Cassian called to her calmly. So everyone's kind of freaking out, and Cassian's like calling to Nesta. Her eyes flick open, and she has that silver flame going on. And he said he felt death watching him. Again, I'm trying to picture what this power really is. It sounds terrifying, but I'm also like, what does it seem like to have death watching you? Seems pretty deep. Yes. He didn't let her smell his fear, he said. And he just kept saying, let go of the stones and bones, and we can go play. And then he started making out with her in front of everybody.
Well, he also warmed the room with the heat
arousal.
of his arousal.
But he talks about how he had to like break ice on her teeth and tongue and like warm it. And break ice like on her basically.
Hot.
So hot. Not to mention, can you imagine everyone else's face in that room? Just like... You guys can't see my face, but it's just like what you would do if you watched someone make out with someone who was like frozen with their mouth open and you're breaking the ice and then making out with them.
Oh, so just exactly what you just described.
Yeah. Kind of weird. And then Nesta just drops the bones and then starts making out with him too and drops him right over the bog of Orid.
Yes.
Amren's the one who said that was a sacred place where warriors used to be laid to rest. That has since changed to a place of like darkness, and there's just a lot of creatures there that they just like chose to leave alone. Like it's just like a mutual agreement. We won't mess with you. You don't mess with us. And that's how they've been rocking for the last couple centuries.
Well, and she starts with, what the F did
what
you just do, Cassian?
Happened? What the fuck just happened? That was weird, to say the least.
So it is decided they go to the Bog of Orid, which is in the middle.
Right.
And again, as a reference, we know the middle is like full of wild magic. And it is sacred that no lord owns it.
Right.
They run themselves.
It was before the courts.
Before the courts.
Yeah.
So it's decided as Cassian and then Nesta are all going to go. And Nesta is because she has to be the one that senses it.
Right.
And we know Cassian wouldn't let anybody else go but him.
Yes.
And Az always has to be the third. Poor guy.
And Feyre and Rhys both wanted to go, but...
It's dangerous.
And we're worried. They were very much mom and dad in this whole situation.
So they're flying, and on the way there, Nesta learns about a lot of the monsters, because she was like, I didn't want to ask before we left, because I would lose my nerve, but, like, what should I expect, man?
But, like, when you say creature, like, what do you mean?
Yeah. And he, like, laughs, like, okay, well, I guess I'm going to tell you about the Kelpies.
Yeah.
They're, like, an original monster. The first beings on this planet. They... like, drown and feast is how they explain it. And so, like, they drown and then eat the bodies.
They're, like, I feel like old school mermaids. How we were explained them.
There's also witches. And they drink young blood. So, stay away from the witches.
Winnie and all of those guys.
I mean...
Sanderson
and then
sisters?
there's light singers, which originally Nesta was like, oh, that doesn't sound bad. But... that's the one that lures you and kills you for sport and not food. Like, they just, like, lure children.
They just want to kill you.
Just because it's fun to kill people.
You're not even food.
No, the Kelpies...
they sound so nice!
They'll eat you for nourishment.
Yeah.
But those light singers are...
they don't even care.
DICKs. Okay.
You know, when you're doing a podcast with me, you still have to put explicit on the episode because even though you spell out the cuss words, I don't.
But, I mean...
let it fly. Do it.
I said effer.
You can always tell when we are getting farther into our recording because by the end of the episode, Marissa's going to be saying the F word. She's going to be throwing cunt around.
I do not say that one.
I've heard it.
As they get closer and closer to the bog of Orid, or Urid.
Ooh, which one is it? Orid or Urid? I read Orid.
I read Orid too, so that's why. That's
Urid
where we're going.
is kind of how they do the old, like, you know, Viking type.
Urid.
Urid.
Ooh, that was really nice. Maybe we should.
I don't know.
Urid. I can't do that.
There's probably no curl of anything in there.
Urid. Okay, I'll stop. So it gets really, like, foggy, and of course, if it's foggy, you can't see trees, and Cassie didn't want to run into a tree. I actually didn't realize that until they pointed it out in the book.
That was why he...
yeah, that's why he went up. Yeah.
Oh.
But...
you're not a pilot. That makes sense.
Okay. Well, I'm glad I didn't feel stupid, because you didn't react like, man, you're an idiot.
No, I'm still like, I still didn't understand what you were saying. So I didn't even catch it that time around, in all honesty, so...
Okay, so they lose Az in this, and so Cassian's like, oh shoot, and he, like, is, like, looking for him, and down below, he sees, like, spurts of magic. And
he
so
sees,
he's
like, the blue of his siphon.
It's like, something's going on. He flies right by. And Nesta's like, where are you going? Like, he's back there. And he's like...
well, and on the flyby, they saw that he was fighting Autumn Court soldiers, and that he had an ash arrow through his wing. So Nesta sees that it's, like,
and he's
dire.
like, go back.
Yeah.
Go back.
Yeah.
And he's like, no way. And he just keeps flying. He's trying to find a safe place to land. There's no safe place.
Right.
Because, you know, it's the middle.
It's a bog.
Yes. It's a bog of Orid. Okay. And so he finds this really, really tall tree.
No, Nesta's
very
like,
far away.
drop me in a fucking tree then. And he's like, bet.
Okay, bet. And he puts her on top of this really, really high tree.
Yeah.
And she is just holding it like crazy.
Yeah.
And he goes away.
He goes away.
And she's just sitting there for
She's like,
such a
I'll
long
stay,
time.
I promise. I promise I won't leave.
Does
Just
she
drop me in
stay?
the train. No!
Okay.
She pulls a Feyre on Fire Night and is
Yes.
like, maybe 5 minutes is long enough.
Actually, I think she said like 20 to 30.
She did. She did wait for a good amount of time.
But that's not enough time to fight back
battle.
people and then carry your brother back.
Right.
She should have given it more time.
I would agree.
Okay.
She does also think in that they probably need my help, which, no, they don't. But okay.
Nesta, on the way. I mean, she did cut off the King of Hybern's head.
Actually, Elaine did.
Elaine just killed him, but Nesta always claims that it's her kill.
Yeah, she cherry-picked
couldn't count it.
She's cherry-picked that shit.
If you have teardrops for every person you kill, is that what the teardrops are for? She would falsely have that teardrop.
She would.
That's not her murder.
That ain't your teardrop, bitch. No.
Okay, so she climbs down because, why not? And she, gets down on the ground and is like...
What's the first thing she does, Marissa?
She went to the water, you know, because she was like...
The black water that you can't see the bottom of?
Well, that she just learned monsters kill people,
live in? Yeah.
drown.
And just kind of loses herself in her own reflection.
She's just like, oh. And then she starts to realize her reflection isn't her reflection.
It's like
It's a monster.
This is like every scary movie that you watched and you're like, don't run up the stairs!
Oh, I could just feel my inner self yelp and jump up.
What? Don't go to the water! Don't comment on how it's so black you can't see into it, and don't gaze over it.
Yeah, I would have definitely climbed partway down and then looked and been like, this is not a good idea.
And climb back up
And be like, Cassian!
Or moved. Started running towards where he was. Maybe. I don't know. Anyways.
No, but I would have reacted this way too. She was startled, she yelped and jumped back and then peed her pants. That's what I would have done.
True. Yes. She did do that.
Yes.
She shouldn't have been gazing over the water in the first place. So I was a little annoyed by it. But yes.
So
a face is looking back at her.
It comes out. It's definitely a Kelpie.
Yes.
And it grabs her and drags her under and starts kissing her.
Yeah.
And she's just gross, trying to fight it away. She realizes afterwards that the Kelpie was kissing her grossly, but also feeding her oxygen.
Yeah.
So he does that, and she's just oh. And he's touching her stuff.
He was groping her whilst doing that. S-A-ing. Gross. And so she is just getting pulled under. Meanwhile, this Kelpie is just talking in some foreign language, and she sees something glowing in the distance. And the Kelpie is just driving right to it. And she's like, oh my gosh, what is it? What is it? And the Kelpie just drives right by it. And she's like, oh my gosh, he didn't even see it. Right.
And so she lays out her hand and grabs it. And then it's the mask. And she realizes it. And this Kelpie is just still talking do. She puts the mask on and she gets the dead skeletons that are all around her, because we also find out in the flight that people also used this bog as a burial.
Right.
And so ancient soldiers and stuff, it was a rite.
Even. Yes. Kings and lords were buried there.
Yes. In all of this muck that she was being dragged through towards this glowing light, she was being bounced off skeletal remains, half dead, decomposing.
Right.
But also in armor with weapons and stuff like that. So she takes the mask and puts it on, and all of the stuff starts coming alive and just attacking the Kelpie.
Yeah.
And it is just tearing it apart while the Kelpie is just screaming and talking in this language and stuff like that. And she stands up, and Cassian and Azriel are standing right there.
Yeah. They're frantically looking for her. They realize what's going on. It kind of pans directly to Cassian and Az, and they're looking for her, and they just see all the spears start to rise out of the water, and then her with that mask on.
Yes.
As well.
And
with the Kelpie's head in her hand.
Of course, that's her
just like the King of Hybern.
That's her shtick.
Yeah.
She looks like the death god.
He said she looked like death herself.
Yes.
And
so they both bowed.
I was
to
floored
her. Yes.
when that happened. Like, they just bowed. Like, that was just instant. Like, Death herself, they bowed to her.
Yes. And then she took off the mask and everyone dropped.
Everyone collapses. So Cassian leaves her in a tree and comes back, and she's the ruler of the dead.
I mean, I'm no damsel in distress.
Obviously not. So they have 2 Autumn Court soldiers that they consciously, out of like the dozen that they were fighting Kaz and Az in the bog of Orid, they consciously let to survive so that they could, quote unquote, get information out of them, which we've seen the way Az gets information out of people.
Truth teller.
So there's a little bit of torture going on, and they're trying to get information out of these 2 Autumn Court soldiers, and it's like they were under some sort of trance. As said, they're only driven to harm without reason or context. Yeah. Rhys even tries to get into their mind, and he says all he can see is like mist and fog, which confirms to them that they're under some sort of spell from Braylon and Koshi. So Feyre's like, well, okay, so hear me out, guys. If they're in a trance and under a spell, is it really fair for us to keep torturing them?
Yeah, we should probably stop.
And Rhys is like, fair point. Let's stop doing that. And let's just kind of hold them, and we'll let Eris know that we have them a little bit later.
So that just... Rhys is a little dark. He needs to get pulled back sometimes.
Like, why does it take Feyre to go, hey guys, maybe stop the torture then? Maybe.
They can't help themselves.
They were just very matter of fact, like, yeah, there's only mist and fog. Let's see what else we can get. So then they're walking down to this room that Rhys had warded to hold the mask. And the door is just open, and Nesta is standing there. And basically, she said that it had beckoned her there and just opened the door for her. Amren said she was lucky that she was even able to take the mask off, because typically it stays on, and the only way to sever the spell or the bond to it is by cutting the person's head off. Yeah. I love how Amren was just like, there's a price when you want to,
mess with this stuff.
Mess with an army of the dead, right? When you want to lead an army of the dead, there's a price to pay. There's a price to pay, man. That's the way it is. So Nesta just said she just wished to be released, and she was. So another instance of like calls to like. Amren said that only those made by the same dark force can obviously wield that dark force, which Nesta is.
Well, and the crazy thing is, Rhys warded the mask right when they got it. He warded it, and he has been learning so much from Helion. He's been learning so much from Hellion about these different wards, because that was the whole pretense to the pregnancy shield.
Right.
So if the most powerful lord in history warded it, and it just opened for Nesta.
Right. So he's like, let's get Helion back here, and maybe he can rig something up with Nesta, so that way it actually works.
Yes.
So that's their plan. Rhys then asked Nesta to see what happened.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, I see like Rhys like holding onto her hands and going, oh my gosh. And then going over to Amren and going, here, look, oh my gosh. Amren's response to what happened in the bog with Nesta and that Kelpie. And we didn't know. It was like the blah, 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 like language. Amren said it's a dialect that hasn't been spoken in 15,000 years. He said he was going to make her his bride before his supper. That was the translation. He kept calling her like his pet.
Well,
his beautiful.
Nesta looks so, because like when he was groping her, like, and making out with her, it wasn't like I'm kissing your face. It's like I'm biting you sporadically and making out, and like when he was touching her boobs, it was like he was clawing and scratching her, and so she is like beat to hell. Yeah. Even in her
she looks like
body.
She was groped by a water monster.
Fair. I guess that should be done.
She totally does. The whole thing is just nuts, right?
Yes. And we also find out that they don't reproduce. Like, they were made, and that's it.
The Kelpie.
So that guy has been there longer than anybody else.
Right. Amren said he might have been the last. Then when it comes to finding the mask, Like, out of all of that, you're getting pulled through this bog that you can't see, and then you see something glowing that apparently she only saw glowing, and you just are able to catch it out of all of this. She said that she was reaching for her power, and the mask appeared.
Yeah.
Like calls to like. Like, so basically, she was reaching for it. And again, Amren's response was, so you do have powers.
Yeah.
And Nesta's like, you already knew that. Don't try and play, bitch.
But Amren again is like, we know.
Yeah.
You
so
idiot.
But then as soon as it gets
we
tense,
know
like,
you know.
We know you know that I know that you know. But they're both like, you know, I know. It starts to get tense, and Cassian just goes, all right, let's let the Lady of Death get some rest. Okay. Like, he's got to like crack a little joke to like break up the monotony of it.
Pause for a cola open.
Sponsored by Dr. Pepper.
Diet Dr. Pepper.
Diet Dr. Pepper.
We call it DDP in this household.
Mm-hmm. And then they bang. Na, 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 na. And then they bang.
Okay, let me pull up my notes so I really can describe it. Oh, I only wrote, and then they banged hard.
Oh, you did?
You're going to have to talk about this.
So Cassian brings Nesta some food, and she's in the bathtub, which makes him all flustered. And Nesta can tell, so she's kind of playing with him, and she's like, you want to get in? And Cassian was like, but you're hurt. And Nesta's like, stop treating me like this damsel in distress. Gets out of the bathtub all like, I know you think I'm hot. I know you like me.
I think she actually wrote, like, her breasts were, like, perked.
Of course they are. Her nipples were peaked. I don't know why I become British when I talk about sex. So Nesta tells him, they get all hot and heavy. They're going to do it. Nesta's words to him, it can't be anything more than sex. What is with these Archeron girls and having to like douse the sensual flames?
Yes, which is, I just want to have fun.
I need a distraction. It can't be anything more than sex. Cassian's reaction, very similar to how Rhys reacted.
He's like, poor puppy dog.
I mean, he was basically like, she was like, I want a distraction. He's like, okay, I'll be your distraction. Even though it broke his heart, Cassian's like,
I'll be whatever you need.
Yeah, it can't be anything more than sex. I'll take you
whatever.
wherever you'll have me, basically.
Aww.
Oh. And as soon as they were done, Cassian was like, peace out, bitch.
Well.
Only sex, right? And left. And Nesta felt a little used. She was like, ooh, it was a trap.
I think she set her boundary and then was like...
Didn't really like her boundary anymore.
I changed my mind, but my ego...
Won't let me say it.
My ego won't let me say it.
Oh, that's exactly what it was. That's exactly what it was. So then it's the next morning, and they have to act like they didn't bone.
I know. And you know that everybody can smell it because everybody's high-faced, so don't act like you...
They're like, we can't smell the arousal. We're not going to talk about it right now, but we know they all can.
But Gwen and Emery were like,
oh,
did you guys?
They knew. They're like, oh, you totally did.
You totally did it. And she's like, I'm not saying I did it.
But I don't kiss and tell. And Cassian's like, I can hear what you guys are saying down there. He's basically like, why don't you get to work? He can tell they're all gossiping about him. And Nesta's like, when do we do something useful? When do we get to use these weapons? And he tries to kind of be like, oh, you think you're good enough for the weapons, huh?
Yeah.
You think you're good enough? All right.
Prove it.
Pick up a wooden sword. And at first she's like, a real sword? He's like, no. You think I'd trust you with a real sword?
It took me 7 years before I had a sword.
7 years!
And she's like, am I really going to have to wait 7 years? He's like, no, I took a long time. No, I'm just kidding.
I was on the 5-year path.
They did start when they were 3, so I'm glad they waited 7 years.
Exactly. But he's like, no, go get the wooden one, all right? Don't. And he basically taught her a couple of, and how to call out the combinations.
Star.
Well, and he just kept kind of doing it. He taught her all the steps, and then he would call out combinations, and she would do it. She got better and better and better, and her whole inner dialogue was never again. Was talking about how she was never going to be weak ever again, or at someone's mercy.
Yeah.
And Cassian was happy with her. You could tell at the end of it. But what I loved is Emery and Gwen both came over and just like grabbed wooden swords. Like
and started.
Yeah. They came over to learn, and you could just tell it was like the camaraderie between the three of them. Like they were all thinking the same thing. Yeah. Never again. Never again. Yeah.
I will also say when they were talking about swords, there was a lot of innuendo. It was like an uncomfortable amount. It's like, you guys are making it awkward for everyone.
Well, I think Emery and Gwen could tell that they were getting to her, so they just like kept going with it, which I loved.
Gwen and Nesta and Emery, like while they're like cooling off and stuff, Gwen starts talking about the Valkyrie and how they have this method called mind stilling. Mm-hmm. I've definitely tried it. Like, I mean, it's basically meditating. Yeah. But I'm like really good stuff.
You're doing such a good job right now. No. Really good stuff. Tell me more.
No. I'm saying this is like life altering. This is changing her mindset.
Oh, yeah.
Her like training to do it and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, she first mentions it. Gwen mentions it because she's like, maybe, Nesta, if you need help concentrating because you're oogling and drooling over that guy you just slept with that we both know. I know this thing called mind stilling.
Yes.
It did.
And she's like, could you get us a copy of that chapter? And she was like, I already made 3.
And I'll guide you guys in it because I've already kind of studied this a little bit. Yeah. Yeah. I actually found it pretty impressive that they were able to catch on to it. In the first, I've tried meditating.
It's really hard.
I can't do it. Mm-hmm. I can't do it. I have to tell myself, hold that thought, and I wander off, and I'm like, you didn't hold the thought. You're
supposed to hold it, accept it, and let it
go,
and say goodbye to it. Yeah. But I hold it and hold it and hold it. And hold it and think about it more and overanalyze it.
Am I holding it too much?
Beat myself up for not doing it right.
But that's not what happened. Nesta said at the end of it, it was for the first time in her life, she felt utterly settled in her own skin. Yes. I related to that comment a lot, right? Mm-hmm. Like just kind of being able to
That's probably what working out does for you.
It does. I still can't meditate. No. I could also try a little harder too.
Same. Okay. And so Cassian is like, hey, does anybody want to come with me to the blacksmith? He's actually very surprised because Nessa's like, I will. Mm-hmm. Everybody else says no. I mean, all the priestesses are like, this is a stretch for me even to go outside.
I'm on the roof. What more do you want? Okay.
Okay. It took me 60 years to get here.
You want me to go to a war camp?
You want me to jump into your arms and fly somewhere?
To a war camp of men.
Actually, they were much more polite than that.
They were. But they were basically like, yeah, no.
And Emery's like, I got a job.
I do have a day job.
I can't flutter around all day like you guys.
So Nesta's like, just me then. Okay, let's go.
Let me cuddle in your arms the night after we, you know what. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Nudge, nudge. Before they leave to go see how the weapons are made, Lucian comes up to training because they had summoned him to talk about the spring court and kind of be stationed there. And he sees Nesta doing the different punch combinations on like the tree trunk. And she was punching. He was extremely impressed. And then as she walks towards the stairs and passes them, they notice she punched through the padding and left a burn mark in the actual wood. The entire column was burning and then dissolved to the touch.
I just pictured White Walkers.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And Lucian's response was, "Mother spare you all." So again, more indication of Nesta being super, super powerful and not knowing how to use it or what's actually going on.
So they fly up on the blacksmith, and it's not an Illyrian because we know that they're very superstitious. So if she even walked into the blacksmith, they'd have to like burn it to the ground or something weird like that because they think she's a witch. But so it's a fae blacksmith that's very gruff and everything. Yeah. And so they walk in and Nesta's kind of like, why are we here, man? He's like, I need you, before you pick up a sword, I need you to understand the amount of work that it takes to build it and make it. And
it's an art.
It's an art. Yeah. I need you to understand it's not just a tool, it's an art form, right?
Understand and appreciate it.
Yeah. And originally the blacksmith is like, no, get out of here. I actually have a job. I should be working. I don't need an apprentice.
Yeah.
And Nesta does her courtly, like, overly generous and sweet and nice, and he actually, in flattering way.
Yeah.
And Cassian even thinks in his head, like, oh, she is really good at that. If this gruff guy can start smiling and, like, showing off to her.
Well, and he also knows that's not her.
No.
And so she turns on, like, this other side of her personality that can, like,
Yeah.
pander to him a little bit and get him to do what she needs him to do.
We also know that Nesta has the thing with fires, and we know why.
Yeah.
But nobody else does, obviously. But we know blacksmith, like, the whole thing is, like, crackling.
Right.
So this must have been, like
her anxiety's on tilt right now.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, it gets to the point where she's watching it and everything, and she's like, can I try? And so he, like, says, okay, and, like, teaches her how to do it. Like, the first couple one were, like, not very good, but then she kind of got the hang of it, and she ends up, like, trying, like, 3 different things. So she tries the sword, and she does a regular sword, and then she tries, like, a dagger, and he, like, was, like, showing her, okay, now you hit it this way for a dagger, and then she does one of those, like, big, broad swords.
Like a mega sword.
Mega sword. And Cassian was, like, so turned on, quote unquote, by, like, watching the power as she just, like, hammered the thing. I just pictured, like, something very the 1940s, like, woman, like, with, like, power behind it.
Boom, pow, here I am.
We can do it.
They have Hellion coming to Huon City to talk to him about the various things they need to talk to him about. He wants to come. What I love about this, in true Helion fashion, he wants to come in a golden chariot led by horses with golden hair. Reese is like, absolutely not. Absolutely not. So what does Helion roll up on?
A Pegasus.
He's like, okay, this is the muted version. You need to let me live my life. I need to show off a little bit. But we do find out that Pegasus are super, super rare.
There's like 7.
And he only has those because Amarantha butchered like 3 dozen or something like that, I think they said of his. While Hellion's there, he confirms that the Autumn Court soldiers are not being controlled by like a spell that can be broken. Like he can't see it to break it, but their actions are also not their own. So it's something else. It's not something that he can break. So they suspect that Braylon has the crown then. And she's influencing them with the crown if it's not a spell.
2 of the 3 down.
Right.
But also, everybody needs to get away. So they're like, you can't go back now.
Right, because there's a proximity thing, right? So they're like, okay, we'll go do this. And Feyre was very adamant that, like, absolutely not.
She pulled rank.
She did pull rank, for sure.
And she said, everybody out. All your spies. And he's like, wait, no, come on. And he's like, we can't trust anything they say.
We can't.
Everybody out.
And you're not going back.
Yeah.
And then also while Hellion was there, he created wards where the mask was with Nesta's blood. And I found it extremely interesting that Nesta did not want to know how to unlock the spell. And she made the comment, if Braylon is looking for it and captures her, she doesn't want to have the knowledge. But Cassian was like, I think she also doesn't want to know herself because she doesn't necessarily fully trust herself.
Yeah. Which, how mature.
Right. It's again, she's growing, she's changing.
Okay. So Nesta is sitting in bed reading, and Cassian comes and brings her dinner, right? And he was like just assuming she was reading the smut again because she closed it really quick, and he like makes a joke about it, and she's like, no, actually, boom, it's a war book. And he's like, wait, what? And she's like, yeah, I asked the house what you would read, and it gave me this. And he was like, fair, that's a really good one. But he also mentally notes like, wait, you're talking to the house?
No, like the house knows what I would want to read.
Well, yeah, this is awkward. We've done a lot of stuff in this room that I really don't want the house watching.
Yeah.
Awkward.
But I like how she said she wanted to know war strategy to be her own weapon, because if she doesn't, then she's just someone else's weapon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so then Cassian the next night decides to bring her multiple war books.
Yeah, which is cute. It's very much like a courty thing. Like, here's some more stuff. Hey.
Yeah. And they like somehow the conversation grows to, I know we've been masturbating to each other.
Well, no, she first goes, was the sex good for you? And he's like, yeah. And she's like, how come you haven't, like, come to see me? And he's like, I've been thinking about you every night when I, like, think of you. I've been thinking about you every night when I'm touching myself. And she's like, me too.
Yeah. And then he's like, oh, really? Was the way you do it better than the way I do it? And she's like, I don't know. Is it? And Cassian says, show me. Let's see a side by side.
So then my next note just says, then we get 7 pages of graphic dirtiness until put your hands on the headboard, hold on tight.
My notes have a lot more. Okay.
We don't need to go into super detail if you can't handle it, Marissa.
So then he does it to her and says, do you want to do it?
I don't want to talk about this. Can we just know that we all read the same 7 pages and we all know what it consisted of?
Put your hands on the headboard.
Hold on tight.
And hold on tight.
I wasn't, my mouth was like, ooh. Oh my God. All right, you're not allowed to talk about the sex scenes anymore. We're gonna fade to black in our podcast discussions of it and just know we enjoyed those pages at different levels. I don't need to talk about it. It's just
fade to black.
Fade. Then 7 pages of graphic dirtiness. Put your hands on the headboard. Hold on tight. Fade to black.
Ah.
Okay. So now Cassian's at the river house, and Reese is like, "Hey, guess what? Your buddy the blacksmith dropped off this stuff for you, and said he doesn't want it. They're cursed." And it was the megasword, the sword, and the dagger that Nesta had made. So when Cassian said that Nesta had hammered all 3 of them, Amren and Reese were both like, wait, what? She did what? Like, they both knew something that nobody else knew. Go figure. This happens all the time.
Don't touch it.
Yeah. They basically knew right away that Nesta had, like, imbued the weapons with her power. So Amren said she basically created a new dread trove. Like, the initial dread trove was given its powers by dipping it into the cauldron. And since Nesta possesses the powers of the cauldron, she just created a new dread trove, and they called it the Trove of Nightmares. I like that. I'm like, yeah. What is that called when you TM it?
Trademark.
Couldn't remember what TM stood for. Okay. So
should we trademark? Are you saying we should trademark this?
No, Trove of Nightmares trademark. They should trademark it.
We should.
Trove of Nightmares is yours. All right.
Let me look it up online.
Then what pissed me off, though,
okay,
they immediately go into a conversation on whether they should tell her or not.
Yeah.
Which I was like, maybe a question of when you tell her, but like everyone should know. And they just finally decided that Pharaoh would be the deciding vote, which I was like, okay, Pharaoh's going to vote for her to know. I know she is.
Yes,
so.
I agree.
That annoyed me, though, that they were split. And I thought Cassian was like rightfully pissed about it. Yeah. Like he was the only one really defending her.
But so the Archeron sisters are just getting lied to all across the board.
Yeah. I don't like that part. Amren and Reese were pissing me off in that
everybody
position.
lies to Elaine.
Yeah, Elaine don't know what's going on. They don't bring her into anything. So they're split on that. They're like, fine, we'll let Feyre decide. And then Amren's like, I'm leaving. Put those 3 things somewhere safe and don't unsheathe them. You better fucking not.
Yeah, don't touch them, you idiot.
She like told them all 3, shook her finger at them, and was like, no.
Yes.
Okay. Then
Cassian said, hey, let's look at what our new stuff, man.
Hey, Reese, if you use your power...
it's not technically touching it. I'm not touching you. I'm not touching you.
Just, like, use your power. Let's just, like, see. Like, technically, we're still listening to Amren. She can't yell at us. We aren't touching it.
And Reese is like, fine.
So he's like, okay, cool, let's do it. And it was hard for him. He couldn't get the sword
He said, like, it was, like, fighting against him.
As home power, right? It glowed like moonlight with sparks dancing along the blade, and it radiated cold, just like her silver flames. And he said it looked like an icicle in the sun. The second sword, though, was hot and angry. So she was like feeling different things as she was making them.
I want to go back and compare. I'm going to make a chart. Because when she was making it, she actually was describing what she was thinking about.
Yes. Yeah.
I need to go back and look at that.
And see, then they just heard Amren cackle behind them and go, I knew you fucking idiots were going to try. Basically. Like they were like, I knew you idiots would not be able to resist. Then Amren starts to go in about how with these 3 blades, you could make yourself king.
Yeah. Well, because we find out that the last, or one of the most famous, quote unquote, made swords from way back when, that they have no idea where it was. And this was actually Gwendolyn.
Right.
The last king of Perintheon that united all the lands under his rule. Like he did it with this sword.
Right.
And there was actually peace for centuries after that. And so that's why they're like, Rhys, you can do it.
You have 3.
You have 3.
Right.
We also learn about Narbin, a sword older than Gwendolyn, and it's rumored to be destroyed by Amarantha.
Which Rhys didn't really know anything about it.
No.
But that also wasn't weird for him to not know. No. In all honesty. Yeah.
Well, and the Gwendolyn, nobody's seen it since the High King or King of Perintheon fell.
Yeah. Yeah. And they don't even know where it's rumored to be.
Yeah.
So Amren keeps kind of pushing. And Rhys is like, I want nothing to do with being High King.
Yeah.
She keeps saying all the courts unified under one king would make them stronger. Rhys is like, we would have to fight an internal war first.
Yeah.
Az then goes, Khalees, Tarquin, and Hellion would be on your side. Would probably be willing to kneel. Thesan would if others do. So it's basically Tamlin and Beren that you would have to worry about. They're the only 2 standing in your way.
And Tamlin doesn't have an army.
Right. And Beren, they already have Eris pretty much on their side. So Amren just keeps going, thinks it's not a coincidence that after thousands of years, objects that once crowned a king back in the day, Gwendolyn crowned the last king, objects of that nature are appearing. Yeah. She's like, I think it's a sign from the cauldron itself. And Rhys is just wants nothing to do with it. What were your thoughts at this moment?
I loved this part.
Yeah.
I loved hearing all about all the stuff that's happening.
But what did you think of Amren pushing him, Rhys being like he doesn't want anything to do with it?
I thought he didn't want to be a High Lord either, but he did it because he was the best option.
I felt, and again, maybe it's because I'm seeing this through different eyes. So I'm seeing Rhys not through Feyre's eyes. I'm seeing Rhys through Cassian and Nesta, which is a little bit different. I think he's full of shit.
Yeah.
I think he is already thinking of this.
Oh, he's always thinking of way ahead.
He's always ahead. So why would he not be? Why would he have not already thought that with these 3 daggers? And he is the most powerful. And you don't think he didn't know with Az that majority of them probably would go that way?
Yeah. Yeah, he would know.
So part of me is he's kind of playing no, I want nothing to do with it, but I think he's already got wheels turning.
Counter theory. It might be the Nesta relationship with the mask, where she doesn't want it, but is drawn to it still. Where she's scared of using it and everything because she doesn't want to turn.
Yeah. But I think Rhys is more he can wield it.
Yeah. It's all about, oof.
I think there might be something there.
Dun dun dun.
I just got a vibe that he knows what's going on. He knows what's going on.
He is always, and now that we're not in his head, because he's always I kind of thought that.
Right. And it would be like him if he was going to kind of have a negative turn, right? Or he sees in the future where that's going to have to happen, even if it's for valid reasons, right? He could see that being able to refer back to it being Amren pushing him and he didn't want it would look good in his favor.
Yeah.
I think he's too calculated to not
He did unite the lords for the war. Mm-hmm. He did unite.
But what if all of this is for the larger purpose to be king?
I know. That's great.
It's a big theory.
Eek. Okay.
Yeah, but I got a different vibe there. So at this point, Cassian and Nesta winnow to the spring court to meet Eris to keep him up to date about what's going on.
Cassian is just like scratching, but like trying to hide it from Nesta.
Yeah.
And Nesta
doesn't want to look weak.
Nesta is just thinking, oh my goodness, this would be Elaine's heaven.
This place is made for Elaine.
Yes.
There are so many flowers and pretty, pretty rainbows and sun. And Cassian is just struggling with his allergies, wants to rip his own skin off.
Yes.
I think Cassian makes a comment about how he's like a warrior, or he wants to peel his skin off, and Eris is like, I'd like to see that, or something like that. And that's how they know he's there.
Yes.
So Cassian tells Eris, good news, bad news. We found most of your soldiers, but most of them are dead. So we found 12, only 2 are alive. Eris immediately kind of challenges their motives.
You can tell he's pissed.
He's like, oh, only 2? Huh, wonder how that happened. I wonder if they were tortured. Were they? And Nesta just points out that his soldiers shot ash arrows through Az's wing.
Wait, aren't those illegal?
Which, did that come from Braylon's army? Or maybe your armory? Maybe.
Why do you have that?
Maybe if you don't want us poking, maybe you should stop poking. How about that? So she points out that he could very well be lying to them as well, because he doesn't quite trust them, and he's poking holes. And she's like, to gain... He's like, why would I lie to you? And she's like, to gain our trust to ambush us later. Yeah. She, again, we already said this. She knows the politics. She's playing it very, very well.
And Cassian, every time, like, Cassian does, like, something to, like, give too much information, you can, like, see it on his face. And Nessa's like, it's fine. Like, just shut up.
Let me do it. Let me do it.
Let me do my thing.
Let me do my thing.
And it's working.
Eris is impressed, too. He kind of starts hitting on her. Yeah, he comes on to her, and then, boom, Tamlin jumps out in his beast form. Nesta is the one that challenges Tamlin.
Oh, yeah. And everybody else, like, backs away.
Yeah, and they're like, oh, shit. He caught us here. This means a lot.
Cassian did, like, put Nesta behind him.
Yeah,
like...
I mean, but they went into warrior stance, and then, like, oh, fuck. Eris is like, he sees me here. He's going to tell somebody what's going to happen. You know, they're, like, frozen by that. And Nesta's the one that's like, don't you tell anyone what you saw here. And she's got those silver flames in her eyes. He challenges her back, basically, and she's like, it's your fault. Me and my sister were put in the cauldron. No amount of apologizing is going to change that.
Boom.
You colluded with the enemy.
Boom.
Because you thought Pharaoh was your property.
Boom.
Her rant, I was like, drop the fucking mic. It is all his fault.
Get him.
And she just like, boom, 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 boom. She pointed at him like she did the King of Qyburn. And he's
Put
like,
your finger down, you witch.
She's like, if you tell anyone you saw us here, I will rip your head from your body too.
Just like the last person I pointed my finger at.
Dude, talks a big fucking game, but I love it. I'm finding more similarities between myself and Nesta, because I also talk a big game that half the time I probably could not have backed up, but people didn't challenge me because I think I was scary enough that you were like, she probably is that psycho.
Your percentage of having to back it up
very low.
Very low, but you actually backed it up though.
I could.
You don't want to back it up, but you will if you have to.
I will. Well, I think it's also more like I'm like an alley cat. Like, I won't stop. So maybe that's why. Like, I'll get vicious. I don't care. I'll make it so I win. I don't fight fair. I feel like Nesta's very similar, though, right?
Yes.
But she's going up against men with, like...
you and Nesta.
All right. Whatever. Okay.
But imagine when Nesta has her shit together. That's you.
True. So future Nesta is going to be...
weed smoking Nesta.
Chill the fuck out, Nesta.
Okay. The next day, Cassian mentions he knows Valkyrie techniques. And he actually noticed throughout, like, she was able to go through with a lot less. He's noticed that she's been able to, like, work through stuff, right? Mm-hmm. And that she's been less reactive with stuff. So he's been noticing the techniques that they're using.
Right.
And so he actually calls it out at one point, and he's like, I know about Valkyrie. I know mind stealing.
You don't think I can tell that you guys are, using these old techniques? I knew these bitches. Okay.
Yeah. I fought next to them, and Nesta was like, oh, damn, I keep forgetting how old you are.
Yeah, you're like 500 years old.
This is, again, really creepy. I'm 24.
I'm 24, 5, something like that. She is older.
Yes. But he actually tells them about the Battle of Menhir. And he was this is when him, Az, and Reese were all separated. He was like, just like a grunt soldier in the army.
Right.
And he actually talked about how this was the battle that pretty much ended the Valkyrie line.
Right.
And that it was a suicide mission, and the Illyrians were supposed to be there to help them, but they backed out. And he actually was chained up because he was so pissed.
He was trying to fight his supervisors on it, and he was a lowly grunt, like you said, at that point, a lowly warrior, and so they just chained him up. They beat the shit out of him, essentially chained him up, and by the time he got out,
yes,
it was over.
But the Battle of Menhir Pass, that's where most of the Valkyrian history fell. And so they actually tell them about, the techniques that Gwen is researching. He's like, we can actually do a Valkyrie and Illyrian combo.
Yeah, bring me that info.
Bring me that information. I'll research it, and maybe we can, have some Valkyrie training.
Make something new, is what he said, which is awesome. The comparison to the Valkyrie story here to the Valkyrie story in Marvel.
Yes.
Very similar. The final battle was basically a suicide mission. They knew that going in, but they were under an oath to protect. The original story
is like from Greek mythology.
It is. But I love how it coincides through all of it. That it's very similar.
That's definitely what you picture now.
It is.
They go back to the river house, and Cassian's telling everyone the story about the Valkyrie.
Well, they're there to see what Feyre's vote is. Yeah. Which I'm still a little annoyed by that. But yes, Cassian starts telling all of them this story about the Valkyries and how they're studying it.
Like, Elaine was telling them that that's not surprising to her. Like, Nesta loves dancing.
Her and Feyre were like, that makes sense. We always thought Nesta was born on the wrong side of the wall.
Yeah. And so they just talk a little bit about Nesta. They tell this story about the Duke. Elaine's not very verbose, so I always think she's purposeful with her stories.
I agree, yeah.
But she tells a story about Nesta being so protective, and we already know she's so protective, but even behind the back. And she said, Nesta's such a beautiful dancer that, there was this girl who was very mean to me. Yeah. And I didn't know why. I was always nice to her. And everybody was like, okay, Elaine, she was jealous of how pretty you are. And she's like, okay, maybe that was it. She's too nice to acknowledge the fact that it was because she was pretty. Yeah. And so this very rich duke was coming. And Nesta's 14 at the time. Right. And this heiress was like, definitely talking about, hey, I'm going to snag me a duke. I've got so much money. He's poor. I basically can buy him. Yeah. I mean, it wasn't presented like that, but we all know that's what was going through.
I mean, that's kind of what I heard when when Elaine was talking about how shitty this person was, right?
Yeah. Nesta was such a beautiful dancer. She spent her entire allowance. She looked all decked out to the point where she knew that she was wearing the most expensive outfit. And so she showed up as a princess, the princess of merchants, right? Yeah. My dad is the prince of merchants. I'm royalty.
Knew what he was interested in, knew how to put herself in front of him, but not want him. Yes. Just totally manipulating the situation. Yeah.
And she was just very spiteful and made him fall in love with her.
Stole that fucking dude.
Dancing. Yeah. With just her dancing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the next day when he came and said, hey, I want to ask for your hand, Papa Archeron said, she's 14, dude.
Yeah, she's way too young.
Yeah, and he's like, I'll wait for her.
Yeah. Oh, he wanted her. It was
and Nesta was like, no.
You said this before. Elaine said she made ballrooms into battlefields. She plotted things out like a general. Yes. They ended this with Feyre saying Nesta is a wolf who has been locked in a cage her whole life. They also mentioned what Feyre does with paint, Nesta does with dance. Which
and Elaine does with flowers.
I'll be honest with you. I've always kind of chuckled to myself whenever they talk about Feyre's painting and just imagine it what if she was really shitty? When we talked about this, what if it was stick figures? So when that line was said, like Feyre does with dance, I just imagined like the Australian like break dancer from the Olympics, like, oh, I'm sure she is really good. It made me laugh a little bit. They also talked about in more detail how their mother always manipulated those skills for social climbing. Mm-hmm. Right? So that's not just Nesta. It was their mom pulling those strings.
The next day at training.
Oh, God.
Cassian is doing his Cassian thing. And actually, they've slowly been getting more and more priestesses coming. And so Az has started helping. And so the newbies are down with Az. Now Nesta, Emery, and Gwen are all up top doing the swords, right? Learning the 8-point
They're kind
star.
of the next level, yeah.
Yes, and that's where Cassian is. And so Cassian says, hey, Nesta, what would you name a sword if you could name a sword?
Like if you had one.
If you had one, what would you name it?
Like what would you name it?
And Gwen is like, wait, no. It was Emery was like something like death sword or something like weird.
Yeah.
And Gwen was like, I don't know, like something with flowers. I forget what the names were, but both of them came up with one. And then Cassian's like, hey, dude, what about you, Nesta? And Nesta's like, why? I don't know. Why?
Why do you keep asking? That's kind of weird.
I just kind of want to know what would you name your sword?
I don't know. And then he's like, okay, fine. You know those swords that you made and that dagger? He just tells her everything.
Yeah, and just in a crummy way.
Yes.
And then she's like angry, and he slips, we decided that this was the best thing to do to tell you.
And she's like, we?
First of all, how many people know before I know that I can make something on accident that could kill people?
Yeah.
2, what do you mean? Who voted against me?
What do you mean we voted? What do you mean we...
He didn't even try not to tell her. He was like, oh, Rhys and Amryn didn't vote for you. But Feyre crossed the line.
Oh my gosh. So she storms off to the house, ignored Cassian when he came to her room to try and explain. When he left, she went straight to the stairs and made it all the way to the fucking
She's like,
bottom.
never again, never again. The whole time. And she's like, before I even knew it, I'm walking up Amryn's stairs.
Right.
And I shatter the door. And Amryn is on top of Varian naked.
And she just goes, Varian, leave.
Yes.
And yelled at Amryn, why'd you vote against me?
You were the one that always supported me.
Yeah.
And she's like, I told you, I thought you were a waste of life.
Yeah, I mean, she didn't say that, but she basically, Amryn loses it when she accuses Amryn of choosing Feyre.
Yeah.
And Amryn says Feyre asked them to work together, and she and it's not my fault, you twisted that into me taking her side, which is very true.
Yes.
Then Feyre busts in the middle of their fight, telling them to stop. Stop,
it's
guys.
It's fine. Like, everybody calm down.
Yeah.
And Nesta is pissed, and she's like, you should be pissed too. And they're like going back and forth, and she actually tells Feyre about the baby. And she's like, you think they
respect
care?
You? Yeah.
They're not telling you everything. That baby's, because it has wings, is going to kill you. Yeah. You're going to die. Yeah. It's not just risky. And Feyre, like, starts crying, and you can see in her head, like, she is processing. And then Amryn just looks at her and is like,
what did you do? You've gone too far.
You idiot. Cassian realized that Nesta is gone. And so he actually, like, smelled that she went down the stairs. And so he actually ran down the stairs because he's like, what if she passed out on the steps or something? And he's like, dang it, I should have just stayed at her room. I shouldn't have just assumed she fell asleep. I should have checked. And so then he goes to the river house first because he assumes she would go to the river house or Amryn's. I don't know which. And so he voted river house. That was the wrong place. And so he finds Rhys there. Rhys, at that moment, was actually communicating with Feyre at the moment Feyre finds out and is crying. And he just looks at Cassian and he says, get her the F out of here before I'm going to kill her.
Yeah.
And Cassian just drives, like, just flies right out. He actually finds Nesta sprinting away. And he's like, she's probably sprinting to the closest bar because she just wants to like get really drunk and forget that this happened. And he picks her up. He flies very fast and she just like nestles in him because she knows she effed up. Yeah. Like she's just...
her self-loathing is at an all-time high right now.
She's like despondent.
All she's saying is, I'm done. What I've done is, it's unforgivable. I deserve to be turned into a bloody mist. Yeah. She was wishing Cassian wouldn't have saved her. I mean, the mental anguish she was putting herself through, like so
bad.
Yeah.
Hated herself. So she like gets swiftly taken to the House of Wind, so where they've been staying, and Az is there with just a big bag. Cassian grabs it, they don't even talk, and he swoops her up again.
Right. Well, then I love that Feyre chimes into Cassian's mind and is like, how is she? Rhys overreacted. Shouldn't have done that. I like how Cassian's first response is, I kind of forget you guys, you can do this too. Like, you can just talk to me too.
Should I be offended?
Yeah, she's like, I don't know if I should be offended or not. Like, you're underestimating me. But she basically says, I was furious. You just imagine, like, the sister calling the other sister's boyfriend and being like, he shouldn't have done that. Please come back. Cassian said they were all furious with her, and Feyre's response was, at least she had the courage to tell me even though it would hurt me. And he's like, she didn't, that's not why she did it. Yeah. And Feyre's like, I know, but still, at least she had the courage to tell me. Cassian, like, Cassian kind of saw the parallels in both he's like, I think she saw a parallel in your guys' situations and just went about it the right way. And she's like, that's exactly what I think too. And Rhys should have never threatened her. Cassian said, we're still going to stay away for a few days. We're going to go on a hike. Feyre's like, she hates hiking. Cassian's like, good. I want her to hate life right now. She's going to hate it. And we're going to come home when I decide she's ready to come home. Yeah. Feyre's like, fair enough.
And Rhys in the background goes, I'm delighted that she's going to suffer.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, I was kind of annoyed. Whatever. Don't get in sister business, okay? First rule of brother-in-law, don't get in a sibling fight. Yes. And that just goes for everybody out there. A nice lesson learned as the oldest and second oldest of 4 siblings that are all very opinionated. And when you go through life with people, which siblings is going through life with people, first rule of an in-law, don't get in the middle of a sibling fight. Be there after. Yes. Be there after to say you fucked up or she fucking crazy, whatever. Support however you need to, but don't get in the middle of a sibling fight. Rule number 1.
Okay, so day after day, it is Nesta has to wear the pack because Az did a pack that was too big for Cassian's wings. Right. Which Nesta's like, okay, well, this is Az torturing me because he knew that when he packed that bag.
Yeah. And Cassian's only talking to her out of necessity. Yes. Like, you carry this because
and she's not talking to him at all. Well, she's not talking at all.
But I don't even think, you would think that would be kind of like a humph.
No, it's not even processing.
Like, not even there. Like, just retreated. Yeah.
So she just is walking the whole day. As soon as they get to the spot where they're going to camp, she lays on the ground and just, like, collapses. And he, like, literally, I just picture him, like, pulling the pack off of her as she's just collapsed on the floor, getting the stuff for dinner. Right. She'd wake up in the middle of the night, eat. Cassian made food for her. There. She'd go back to sleep and be woken up by Cassian saying, get your butt up. We're going more. Yeah. They literally, like, it's like silence for 5 days. And she keeps being like, I'm going to, like, not be able to make it. Her body is just exhausted. But I think there's something to, like, when you're so exhausted, you don't even have the energy to process feelings. Right. Yeah. Right. One day, actually, she realizes, oh, shoot, I don't feel good. I have a headache. Like, my water, I left it in my bag. I don't want to take it off. So she just keeps trudging along and, like, ends up just like, oh, gosh, Cassian's tripping. He's usually not so clumsy. And then she's like, oh, wait, that's me. Yeah. And she had fainted. Yeah. And so then Cassian, like, runs up on her and, like, we get his perspective. And he's, like, kicking himself because he's like, I haven't looked back in a while. Yeah. Like, I should have noticed it. Her face is white. Her lips are so chapped. And he's like, gosh darn it, Nesta. And, like, makes her drink water. And he's like, when's the last time you drank? And she's like, yesterday. He's like, take care of your body. Yeah. But anyway, finally they get to the end and there is this beautiful lake that's like glistening. And one thing that Cassian is like rolling through his head is the story of how people used to come to these mountains as like healing. And this lake specifically, they would come and pray and stuff. So it feels like sacred, even though people don't think of it that way anymore. It's been 500 years.
Yeah.
But so there's something to that. But she just like walks up to the lake and like collapses on her knees and just is taking in the water and like playing, like putting it on her hand and just starts bawling.
Yeah.
And she, like, Cassian, like, comes up behind her and is just very, you know, I'm here for you, but I'm not going to interrupt this. I'm here when you need me.
And all she kept thinking was, stop being so nice to me.
Yeah.
Stop being nice to me. I don't deserve it. Like, the self-loathing. Again,
Yes.
Really bad.
Yes. She opened up finally. And he, ironically, in his head, he was like, I knew the dam would break, but I assumed it would be rage.
Yeah.
And that's kind of funny because he did take her to a very remote place just in case she like blew up and killed everybody. There's really nobody
only
around.
maybe some trees and just Cassian.
But he was like, I didn't expect this type because she is so hard. So she does not cry.
His wall goes down and he's being nice to her and she says, stop being nice to me. And he's like, why? And she goes, I let him die.
Yes.
That's her response. And it was kind of like the
click.
Light bulb that this is all coming from. Her father came to save them, fought for her. She let him die, and she still hated him when he died, and she can't get over that.
She's like,
why did he still love me?
I always fail.
Yeah.
I always fail.
Didn't you think when you were listening to her, though, she's like, why did he still love me? I was so mean to him. I was so horrible to him. And I just kept thinking, he's your dad. That's like my kid. Like my kids could be awful to me, and I would still love them. You know what I mean?
Yes.
It's not understanding, like from a parent perspective. Like she's
but
the
it
kid.
also like she grew up where she felt her love was conditional, or the love people gave her was conditional because that's her
true.
mom.
I didn't think of that. Her mom wouldn't have been that way.
No, her mom's love was conditional.
It was. Yeah. Yeah. She feels like she doesn't deserve love. She can't fix any of the horrible things that she has done and feels like she'll never be able to fix herself.
And she also tells Cassian that the reason why she cringes so much at fire is because the crackling sounds like the breaking of the neck.
Yeah.
Her dad's
Cassian
neck.
then helps her by telling her how he knows how everyone talks about him, like he's a worthless bastard and a brute, and deep down it's because he believes it himself. He tells her that he understands this hurt, the self-loathing. You can get through it, though, right? You can get through it, but only if you're willing to actually face it and embrace it and walk through it. And he's like, I'll help you. You can walk in silence for 5 days. You just have to talk to me at the end of it. And they just kind of sit there and hold each other for hours, and she cries. And then he just like hands her a sword and they start training.
A real sword this time.
A real
She didn't have to
sword.
wait 7 years.
She did not. She did not.
She just had to cry in front of him.
I found that interaction beautifully them.
Yes.
You know what I mean? It wasn't like, it's not a normal love story. It's not the same kind of love story we saw with Feyre and Rhys. It was very Cassian and Nesta, which is a little bit of violence with a little bit of love. Like a little bit of rage and love, very intertwined.
And rageful love.
Yes. And I think it's funny that Cassian is the brute, like the brutal one, but he is the softness for her. Right?
Because she's more brutal than him.
She's more brutal than
Who's
him.
more brutal than, what do they call him? Like his death dance? She's a death god.
Yeah.
She wins.
It is interesting that you say that, though, that they called it his death dance. And
she's really into dancing.
She's a dancer. Interesting. All right. So we are at the end of, we don't know, the second, third episode.
We don't know, because these are getting robust.
They are.
I feel like there's a lot that happens to make it so robust, but let us know if we need to stop talking so much. But we can definitely shorten it out.
Essentially, that is the end of the Blade section of Nesta's journey. And
the title of the next one is
Valkyrie.
Boop-a-roo.
Right. So this part, this is it's getting harder.
Yeah. I think Emery.
Yeah? Why?
No, actually, I'd pick Gwen.
Gwen, or both of them?
Both of them. I like both of them.
Yeah, because they kind of balance out to like a whole They're two side characters that...
Well, and it's like, we're finally meeting people who aren't royalty. Like, let me know the man's man.
I did not think of it that way.
Yeah. The working class people.
The working class.
Who would I be in this world? Again, we talked about this. We know you would be the main character.
I'm the main character in my story the time.
I always picture if I lived in this world, I would be Emery. I would be Gwen.
I see you more as a Gwen than an Emery.
Yeah, me too.
It's the large eyes.
But I always wanted to have wings.
Clipped wings, though. I don't know. I would say my favorite character... I am just really falling deeply in love with Cassian.
Of course you are.
Right now. I'm finding connections with Nesta, but Nesta as a character, she's a great character for me to read. Yeah. I love reading about her because I love a character that kind of annoys me, but then I root for them, right? Mm-hmm. I was a big Sons of Anarchy fan. I loved Gemma because I loved that I hated her and loved her viciously in different seasons. Like, she evolved for me and then also went back and, great character development. I very much feel that way with Nesta. Cassian, though, I love my husband very, very much, but I love Cassian also very much.
What actor is Cassian to you?
I don't know if I have an actor. Honestly, I probably picture more Superman with longer hair. Like,
everybody pictures Henry Cavill.
For every character.
I swear, he is my favorite in the world.
It's because he's really good at playing fantasy characters. That's why. I
originally fell in love with him. Tudors. Did you ever watch that show?
I did not.
Watch that show. A young Henry Cavill. Like, that's when we were young.
You don't have Netflix. There's a show on Netflix that he plays kind of a funny... They steal things set back in the day. And he's kind of a funny psycho guy. I honestly, look-wise...
Yes.
I picture him with like a little man bun. I don't know if there is an actor... I mean, I do picture...
Like a clean Witcher.
Yeah, probably. I mean, I do... Well, we already talked about this, that we kind of picture the whole cast at our age, when I think in actuality they would be cast by actors that we don't even know.
Yeah.
Me and you. Because they present younger. But obviously, I feel like Aquaman and him are... Jason Momoa is kind of a dead ringer. And the way that Jason Momoa can play funny.
Yeah.
I think Cassian is a little bit of the comic relief.
Yeah. I'm in.
So
if Jason Momoa, in his, like, young Aquaman years...
Yeah.
With Cassian's personality, came and knocked on your door tomorrow...
Bye, kids. Bye, husband. Catch you fucking later, bitches.
Okay, I'm keeping this recording, and I'm going to taunt you.
Like, Jason Momoa is on my list for sure.
Yeah,
for sure. And what's funny is Derek doesn't have a list, but he allows me to have a list. He's fine with my list. Not allows.
We all know.
I would have a list if I wanted a fucking list.
You know who mine is.
Ryan Reynolds.
Yes.
You only get one?
I mean, I didn't know you could negotiate more than one.
I feel like you need a good top 5, just so the odds are a little bit more in your favor.
Okay. We're playing the odds.
Mine have changed, though. I used to say Channing Tatum, and now I think he's kind of... We don't need to talk... We should not be talking in this much detail if this goes viral. I don't want to hurt Channing's feelings.
Okay. We won't go viral.
All right.
Thank you for joining us. The High Tales with the Lit Sister. How else do you want to end it? You just looked at me and I was like, jazz hands.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of A Court of Silver Flames. We're in the middle somewhere. Okay, we're about to start reading Valkyrie. That's what we're going to talk about when we come back next. So please follow High Tales Lit Sisters on Instagram, YouTube, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. Thank you for talking High Tales with your favorite Lit Sisters. I'm Nicole.
I'm Marissa.
We didn't say that before. We just went, bye.
See ya. Also, let us know if our new strategy of just smoking throughout was a good thing or a bad thing.
I think you'll find out in editing. That wasn't bad.